President Biden plans to sign executive orders this week that the White House says will undo former President Trump's immigration policies.
On Tuesday, when President Biden unveils the plan, he'll sign what would establish a task force that would reunify families separated at the border under the Trump administration. The White House planned for the president to sign those orders 2 days ago on Friday, but because of the filibuster delay over in the Senate, the nomination of Ali Mayorkas to Homeland Security, that has delayed things a little bit. The president is waiting because he wants his new Homeland Security Secretary there. Mayorkas is expected to be confirmed tomorrow night.
Fox's David Spunt at the White House. U.S. airlines are pushing back on the possibility of requiring COVID-19 tests for passengers on domestic flights.
Executives say COVID-19 testing requirements for all domestic travelers would essentially do more harm than good. The major carriers are arguing that the possible move by the Biden administration would further weaken the already low demand for domestic travel and would strip tests away from those who need it for medical reasons. Earlier this week, an official at the CDC confirmed the Biden administration was actively thinking about requiring COVID-19 testing for people traveling within the United States, a move that would build upon the administration's new mask mandate at airports and testing requirements for folks traveling from overseas.
Fox's Charles Watson. A weekend trade steals the NFL spotlight ahead of the Super Bowl.
The Los Angeles Rams will have a new quarterback under center in 2021, Matthew Stafford. On Saturday night, the Rams and Detroit Lions agreed to the framework of a trade that sends Stafford to Los Angeles in exchange for quarterback Jared Goff, a third-round pick in 2021, and first-round picks in 2022 and 2023. The trade cannot become official until after the new league year has begun.
Fox's Ryan Mayer. I'm Steve Rappaport, and this is Fox News.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with AgristHosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to AgristHosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's AgristHosting.com.
Images of destruction are flooding in, and the worst isn't over. Experts warn that Hurricane Ashley could strike as many as 8 bars throughout the day. Her Cinco de Mayo plans, combined with all the recent drama with Scott, have created perfect conditions for Hurricane Ashley to cause a lot of damage this afternoon and well into the evening. Here's a look at Ashley's path of destruction so far. At 11 a.m., she landed on Foster Street, moving from O'Murphy's to the Blue Iguana, hitting the place that does the mini pizzas the hardest. And she's expected to merge with other high-pressure systems, including BFFs Jessica and Christy, within the next hour. Forecasters predict that some areas could see all 3 grown women obnoxiously shouting, wearing sombreros and fake mustaches as early as 5 p.m. The whirlwind might not die down until close to 2:30 a.m. when she's expected to be kicked out of a reggae bar called the Lion's Den for saying something racist. Our thoughts are with everyone in her path.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It must be a day that ends in Y. That's right, I'm back. You can't get rid of me. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for joining the show. It is Free Talk Live, the Sunday night edition. Our telephone number here is 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. If you'd like to join the conversation. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass, joining me.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
And we're here to, well, do all sorts of fun things and talk about all sorts of fun stuff. as well as take your calls. And remember, we're here 7 nights a week from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you don't get on the air for some reason, or you heard something on a previous show that you wanted to talk about, feel free. Give us a call. We're here to talk about that stuff. I wanted to talk about, well, because Lee was here last night with me, we talked about some stuff that we want to talk about tonight. And I've sort of superseded that because, well, I'm in this chair and I can. And by that, I just mean that the lead story tonight is something that we didn't talk about. And that is, I've been monitoring a whole bunch of stuff about this, the Wall Street bets and the whole hedge fund bit and what happened with GME or the GameStop situation.
Fun fact about betting, they had to do a special qualification for the New York Gaming Commission to exempt the stock market because it was far too much like gambling.
Well, I mean, that's not really a fair complaint. You could say the same thing about insurance or driving to work. We have an idea of like, okay, slot machines are gambling and going to work for a salary isn't, but there's not really if you start picking it apart, there's not really a clear defined line like, okay, these activities have no risk because that's not true of any activity, and these activities are just risk.
Yeah, it's a lot more like, what did you notice was like gambling?
Yeah, the long and the short of it to me is that, you know, when bankers and, you know, highfalutin corporate investors manipulate the stock markets to their advantage, that's fine. But
encouraged.
But when a bunch of
legally protected,
you know, we'll call them regular folk who are internet savvy, decide to do it, then, oh my gosh, it's got to be a crime.
And buying stock, which is what the internet did, is a lot less manipulation than buying futures.
And let me be clear.
Which is what Wall Street did.
Yeah, let me be clear. What happened with what they call a short squeeze, what happened with this is completely legal. Mm-hmm. Completely above board legal.
Standard practice.
What the Redditors did is completely 100% legal. What they managed to accomplish was interfering in some of these other, you know, bankers and highfalutin hedge fund managers and that kind of thing, their game, right? They say, hey, new players in town, and it's us. Ha-ha! Here we are.
Well, you could avoid that problem by not selling things you don't have, which is what a short sale is.
Correct. Essentially, the way I understand it, the short squeeze is, you know, somebody borrows a stock, one stock, right? Just to keep the number simple. They borrow it, and the idea is that they'll pay it back, right? So they buy it, and then they hold on to it, and they sell it, you know, when the price goes up, and then they return that one stock, and then they keep the difference, right? So if I buy that one stock for $10 when it's low, they sell it when it's $15, and then they keep the $5 and they return the one stock.
Backward.
Is it backwards?
Yeah, that's backwards. So they don't actually buy the stock. You were right when you said they borrow it. Right.
Yeah.
So you borrow it at $15, expecting that it'll go down to $10, sell it at $15, and then when it goes down to $10, you buy that stock and give it back.
Oh, okay. All right. So at any rate, this has created a whole bunch of commotion, obviously, in the financial world. I've been paying attention to a specific writer over at Bitcoin.com. His name is Jamie Redmond. He's a fantastic writer as far as I'm concerned. And he has penned an article titled, Goldman and Interactive Brokers Executives Claim That the Wall Street Bets Trend Could Take Down the Entire System. Now, during last night's show, in between one of the breaks, Lee, you and I had a discussion about the events that occurred to make this happen are indeed a repeatable model. Any group of people can get together and go see, oh, I wonder what stock is going to be shorted, or what stock is, what they're buying short today.
That might be true today. They can just make it criminal if they don't ex post facto it, which is not uncommon completely.
Right, but in order to do that,
market,
they'd also have to make it illegal for the hedge funds and whatnot to do it, unless they write in some caveat that says, only if you're like a licensed entity can you engage in this particular form of gambling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we already have qualified investors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, just a quick correction on terms. So what we were describing was a short sell, selling short a stock. Now, a short squeeze is what can happen when the price goes up all of a sudden.
Right, which is what happened to GameStop.
Right.
And it was on purpose. They bought this stock specifically to force it to go up in value so as to make it so these hedge fund people who bought the stock at a lower price would have to pay it back at a much higher price.
And that's the thing about any kind of selling short. So normal people don't usually do that. It's very much an inside kind of thing.
Normal people don't ever do that. How would you?
Right.
Well, I mean, you can actually sell a stock short through your broker. But most people don't because the loss is potentially infinite.
Yes.
And the gain is finite. It's whatever the price is, that's your maximum gain.
So this article says the heavy hitters in traditional finance have been concerned about the recent stock market action fueled by Redditors and a colossal number of retail investors. This week, a Goldman Sachs executive warned that if these short squeezes continue, it could, quote, snowball through the entire market, unquote. Moreover, Interactive Brokers founder Thomas Petterfy made similar comments this week, saying these types of systemic risk can, quote, take down the entire system, theoretically, unquote. Now,
well, and the system is based on things that shouldn't be conceptually possible, but that shouldn't be possible in practice. It should not be practical to sell securities that you don't have, because then what does that do to the demand for that security? Now, people know you need it, and it's not a tangible item. It's not like somebody has to produce it to give it to you.
Right.
That should, if we had a market, do what it did this time and just exponentially increase the price. It should not be, I'm not saying it should be, it wouldn't be banned in Nankapistan, I don't think, but it shouldn't be a thing that you can plausibly do.
Right, because it doesn't obey standard market practices, which is just supply and demand, right?
Yeah, and the only reason it works is because they can shut down the stock market
right
whenever they're losing, which is what they did last week.
Right, well, and they also put a halt on the particular avenues folks were using, the Robinhood app. The Robinhood app itself put the kibosh on actually using it to buy more of these stocks.
I would not be surprised if they got a phone call from on high.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
But NASDAQ closed, which I think the last time there was an unscheduled stock market stock exchange closing was 9/11.
Yep. I'd like to refer to NASDAQ as NADSAC because it just sounds better. You just flip a couple of letters around.
It is pretty gross.
The article continues, 2021 has been an interesting year so far, and this week a Reddit forum called r/Wall Street Bets sparked a whole new hot topic. 4 days ago, news.bitcoin.com reported on the stock market fiasco that started with short squeezing GameStop shares, but GME shares were not the only stocks that felt the push as Wall Street Bets trends started leaking into a number of other types of shares. For instance, stocks from the Russell 3000 index were targeted, including tickers like NOK, GoGo, AMCX, and Fizz. The social media craze even leaked into the cryptocurrency world, pushing up coins like Dogecoin and XRP as well. Estimates assume that the short sellers have lost $70.87 billion from their short positions, according to statistics. 603-283-6160.
Want to accept Bitcoin at your online store? There's a good chance you already have what you need: a WordPress using WooCommerce and a Bitcoin address. Now all you need to start taking Bitcoin payments on your website is the AnyPay app on your Android or iPhone. Just paste your Bitcoin address into AnyPay, then connect it to your website with our one-click plugin for WordPress. Now your website takes Bitcoin, start to finish, in 15 minutes or less with no complicated steps. Download AnyPay from the App Store today.
Having taken her father's throne, Sarah Calhoun has fallen out with one of her best allies, and her brother Nathaniel heads into Imperial Philadelphia with a reckless plan. Her uncle Thomas, armed with new powers and new allies, aims to remove Sarah from her throne and from the world of the living. To survive, and to gain the strength she needs to fight an impossible war, Sarah must unite the Mound Builder Kings to enact an ancient rite that will propel her beyond mortality. Servant Daughter by DJ Butler is the newest entry in the Dragon Award-winning Witchy War series from Bain Books at BainBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Divvy's been a pretty good investment for Free Talk Live. Their ad campaign started in September 2019, and from mid-March to mid-July, the values soared by 10 times. It's not too late. Divvy's new wallet hasn't even released yet, and other things are happening that I can't even say on the radio. If you want to invest and potentially do well, go to DivvyProject.org. I can tell you that FTL is deepening its partnership with the guys from DivvyProject.org. Past performance is not an indication of future profit. DivvyProject.org. DIVI Project.org.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Free speech is protected on the internet, right? Not always. Government agencies try to limit free speech and commerce on the net. Luckily, when they do, the Institute for Justice is there to defend your First Amendment right to free speech. IJ helped set the first federal precedent for internet free speech in 1999, and ever since has worked to prevent unconstitutional roadblocks in cyberspace. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening, everybody. It is Free Talk Live, the live Sunday night edition. Yes, we are the live call-in talk radio program where you can take control of the airwaves, talk about anything that's on your mind. You can do that by dialing 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Pigless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
We've been talking about this article from Bitcoin.com where apparently some highfalutin executives over at Goldman Sachs and Interactive Brokers claim that Wall Street Bets, that's the Reddit group responsible for short squeezing the, GameStop stocks, these executives claim that sort of trend could take down the entire system. Now, I personally am a big fan of stuff like that. An article that says take down the entire system. Why, yes, let's feature that on Free Talk Live tonight. So the article continues. The analysis says that Melvin Capital lost a whopping $7 billion during 2021.
70.
70 billion?
Yeah, not 7.
Oh,
70.
Oh, that must be a typo.
Wait, hold on. Who
no,
lost
this is just Melvin Capital. This is just one of the hedge funds, right? We had talked off air about how the hedge funds sometimes have hedge funds that are parts of hedge funds, and so it's like a mecca hedge fund.
Yeah, the hedge funds are frequently backed by other hedge funds,
right?
Which are backed by other hedge funds.
And I believe that Melvin Capital is just one of the hedge funds involved.
Well, and do we know how much they lost yet? Have these shorts come due yet?
We don't know the final figure, but this article says estimates assume that short sellers have lost $70.87 billion. 71 billion, if you round up. The financial news desk has also been reporting on another WSB trend taking place during the last week as short squeezes want to squeeze the silver market. And
that's more difficult to do.
It is, but
if you're talking about actual silver and not vault silver, which probably doesn't exist.
Well, we're talking about the paper that says you've bought silver.
Yeah.
Right, not necessarily the actual
squeeze
silver.
The actual silver market.
Apparently,
that will be a little bit difficult.
Apparently, as of tonight, it's already in play. There was a social media post from some folks that claim that you cannot buy a silver round, at least on paper, at this point. Everybody's sold out right now because the squeeze is on. It's started.
Well, silver had become, and scarce is not a real, there's no such thing as scarce, but for lack of a better term, silver had become scarce a while ago.
Yeah.
They were still selling vault silver because they don't have to actually have it to sell it to you.
Right.
Now, that would be illegal and stuff, but you'd never know. But yeah, it was pretty hard to come by for a while now, actual silver, which is another thing that indicates to me that vault silver isn't real, because if you're sold out of the real stuff, but you're like, well, I have all this vault silver though. Like, yeah, well,
almost like some kind of fractional reserve that you're selling more than you actually have in the vault.
Yeah, weird, huh?
And the price differential was...
Oh yeah, that's one of the great things about this, is it might actually bring the price of silver to the price of silver. Because as you pointed out, I mean, there is a difference between what silver is supposedly selling at, the so-called spot price,
right,
and what you can get actual silver for.
One thread over on the r/Wall Street Bets suggested that the power of the masses could squeeze the price of silver from $25 to $1,000. Zero Hedge has been reporting on trends that show Redditors and social media users have managed to invoke demand for silver.
Well, but then at that point, they would, if they needed silver for some reason, they'd probably just go buy actual silver.
But where?
From places that are selling actual silver. I mean, you could still get it. It's just...
You're going to pay a high price.
You're not going to pay $1,000 an ounce. You're going to pay $30 an ounce.
Maybe.
You're not going to pay $1,000 an ounce.
Maybe. If what they do succeeds.
What, inflating the price of the fictitious asset doesn't affect the price of the actual asset.
It can actually. So, I mean, in your theory, like you buy an actual piece of silver for $30, and the price on the page is for $1,000. I mean, you can get the papers to sell that. Like, you can get it documented and then sell it. And if you're selling it at $1,000, like, that's quite a profit for you.
Or if I bought my silver round at, say, $25 last week, and, tomorrow the price of silver on paper is $1,000, and somebody comes to me and says, hey, Captain, I know you got a round of silver. You want to sell that to me? I can go, yeah, how about $900?
I don't think that would work because people who are dealing in actual silver know that vault silver isn't real.
Okay.
Because if I'm buying a Toyota and I'm like, okay, well, it costs $10,000, and you're like, but they have unicorn cars for $1 million. I'm like, well, it doesn't matter because they're not real and I can't drive it, and they're not going to give it to me.
Well, and that's the difference there, though, is that you can't turn a real car into a well, you can't turn a real car into a unicorn car. Whereas you can actually turn your real silver. You can get it documented. You can turn it into paper silver.
You
and put
as
it
an
on the market.
individual can sell vault silver.
You can, I'm sure you can transfer your silver into the vault silver. Yeah.
In the 24 hours preceding Friday...
I'm sure you'd have to pay for the paperwork to get done. But.
In the 24 hours preceding the Friday market close, SD Bullion sold nearly 10 times the number of silver ounces that we normally would sell in an entire weekend, leading to Sunday market open, the finance reporter disclosed. In a normal market, we can normally find at least one supplier or source willing to sell some ounces over the weekend if we exceeded our long position. Additionally, Polygon.com contributor ONS Good reported this week on how the meme-driven stock rally rescued AMC theaters from $600 million in debt. Meme lords and Redditors saved this business, not the U.S. federal government, not the bankers. Those groups were actively shorting AMC down the toilet. The theater chain gets an unexpected lifeline when private equity trades a corporate IOU for stock, the author's report explains.
And the government was the one attacking AMC in the first place. But
right.
I don't know that they were doing great before. I'm sure they had some of it from digital stuff, but there's still value in a theater, at least to some people.
Well, the theaters
by making it illegal or about half capacity, I mean,
right.
That was what hurt it.
Exactly. It's the government itself that hurt the theaters by these ridiculous clampdowns on, social distancing and all that kind of stuff. Or, no, you can't open without our permission. And, oh, no, you can only open at, like you say, half capacity or quarter capacity.
Yeah, I think this is people defending their actual culture as it's under assault from the government.
Well, and I love the fact that it's memers doing this, not the government. Right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see a real bailout, this is what it looks like.
This is it. 603-283-6160. Who says memeing doesn't accomplish anything? More Free Talk Live coming up.
Maxwell, he was a runaway to rescue, great disposition. About 9 years ago, he was scratching a lot, and he started losing some hair. My vet, she says, oh, he must be allergic to the chicken. Another vet said, it's the grain. Third vet, she says it's the weather, something in the air. And then somebody said, DINOVITE.com. I had been listening to these Dynavite ads, hearing about different stories of different people, and it just clicked. I got my first 90-day supply, and it took a grand total of 2 weeks. And the dog stopped itching, the hair stopped falling out.
Dynavite is nutrition.
And Maxwell loves it. Now he's close to 10, and the Dynavite's a big part of Maxwell's diet.
Dynavite for life. You won't believe how happy your dog will be.
And he's a spectacular dog.
DINOVITE.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for ForkFest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can relax and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded people, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with fellow ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Mark your calendar for June 28th through July 4th, 2021. We'll see you at forkfest.party. Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. Local.bitcoin.com. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
A mouse is eaten. It is an event that happens millions of times a day, all over the world. Other mice are wiped out by disease or starvation. If you collected all the mice that die in one day in New York City, they would weigh 8,000 pounds. If you stacked up an equivalent amount of dead humans or even mangy dogs, it would be considered an atrocity. It seems no one has any respect for the mouse. But then, why should they? The plankton of mammals. They breed rapidly. They all look identical, and they once spread the plague. No one weeps for the mouse, for its life is worth less than zero. Just another cold fact of life on this horrifying planet.
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Welcome back to the program. You're in the right place for the Sunday night edition of Free Talk Live. Our telephone number here, if you'd like to join the conversation, is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
And we've been talking about this article from Bitcoin.com about how the Redditor memers could potentially take down the entire system by continuing their model of short squeezing, as it is called in the investment industry. And we'll continue to talk about that. But since we're talking about Bitcoin.com, I want to let you know that Bitcoin.com is the best source for learning about cryptocurrency. You can go there now and click on Get Started at the top of the page. Once you do that, you will find a cornucopia of information neatly organized by your needs. There's no longer an excuse for ignorance of this important world-changing information. If you are a knowledgeable crypto user, check out news.bitcoin.com, where you can get the latest headlines of all the news relevant to you. Bitcoin.com is your source for buying cryptocurrency, getting a wallet app, mining, trading, and all the latest cryptocurrency news, all on a slick and easy-to-use website. Visit bitcoin.com. So going on just a little bit more with some information in this article, the infamous Tyler Durden from Zero Hedge, and we feature their articles here on Free Talk Live from time to time, wrote about investors' report published by Goldman Sachs executive David Kostin. Durden writes that the latest Goldman report warns that if short squeezing continues, the entire market could crash. Oh no, it's the end of the world. Oh, you mean like a real market would then emerge instead of this fake market that we have?
And I think the best thing about this is that, like, this has set a precedent. So from now on, every hedge fund, every one of these traders is going to have to actually consider, hey, is this going to upset normal people?
Right.
Because if we do something that upsets them, they could clamp down on us.
Right. They actually have to respond to the actual market. I tell people all the time when they're like, oh, I don't understand finance and like the market and all that. I'm like, you actually do. It's really easy. It's supply and demand. The market is just interactions between human beings.
You probably don't understand the regulations in any depth.
Correct.
That's an entirely different thing.
Right.
Yeah,
and getting them to understand that is where, by putting it in such simple terms, they begin to sort of separate that from like what the actual market should be, and they can look at it in those terms.
It's a great ploy to get people to think that they don't understand these things so that they don't compete with them.
Oh, I'm not smart enough to understand what a short squeeze is. Yes, you are. Just read up about it. Pay attention to the articles. Keep reading. Even if you don't understand it, keep reading. Eventually, it's going to kick in.
Mm-hmm.
Your brain will your brain will sort out everything and be like, oh, right, because that's how. Oh, then they did that, and now they're doing it again. Oh, right, I get it now.
Yeah, these intimidating complications that are completely unnecessary is a really effective way of controlling people in a lot of different ways.
Indeed.
Whether it's law, finance, religion.
The most heavily shorted stocks have risen by 98% in the past 3 months, outstripping major short squeezes in 2000 and 2009. 98%. That's high. Costin study details this week demonstrated that unsustainable excess in one small part of the market has the potential to tip a row of dominoes and create broader turmoil, the Goldman analyst added. According to Durden from Zero Hedge, Goldman's hedge fund VIP list declined by 4% this week during the WSB fiasco. In recent years, elevated crowding, low turnover, and high concentration have been consistent patterns, boosting the risk that one fund's unwind could snowball through the entire market. Goldman's David Costin concluded, and Durden interpreted Costin's final conclusion in a different way. The author writes, translation, if WSB continues to push the most shorted stocks higher, the entire market could crash.
Serves them right. I mean, that's the thing. Business as usual is being way out on a limb on all of this stuff all of the time just to keep up with everyone else.
Well, and since the government decided to screw with everybody over the COVID bit, telling people, what businesses could and couldn't be open and who's essential and who's not, who can and can't go to work, all except for everybody employed by government, of course. Not one of them bastards has lost a dime during any of this. We've seen unemployment rise to almost historical highs, right? And yet somehow the stock market is doing great. It tells you something's rotten over at the Circle K.
Mm-hmm.
Strange things are afoot. So this seems to me to be a natural market correction.
It is. It's just that we're not used to seeing those.
Well, and nor are some of these
the Federal Reserve does their damnedest to keep them from happening.
Oh, of course.
Which is why they're bigger when they do happen.
Well, and that's why the very idea of too big to fail. I mean, that's the opposite of how it would work in an actual market. In a real market, you get too big to function, and then you have to break down into smaller pieces.
Yep. Yeah, too big to fail is a bunch of jumbled up words that they made up to say, we're giving these guys a bunch of your money.
Mm-hmm.
Goldman Sachs executives are not the only financial heavyweights weighing in on the stock market craziness and the possible aftermath. The founder and chairman of Interactive Brokers Group, Inc., Thomas Peterffy, it's Petterfy. I don't know how you pronounce that. I'm going with Peterffy, discussed his thoughts about the stock market madness in an interview with MarketWatch financial author Mark DeCambre. On Thursday, DeCambre said that Peterffy explained that the short squeeze action could go on for a very long time unless it was stopped. He also wrote that Peterffy was worried about the systemic risk and, quote, the potential for this trend to ripple throughout the market. Well, I hope it does.
Indeed.
I hope it does because, I was around in 2008 when the market crashed. And that's where the phrase too big to fail came about.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, these companies are too big. We can't let them fail. And so they gave them a bunch of money. And during that entire, we'll call it fiasco, there was a whole bunch of illegal things that happened, even by the government's own standards.
Right.
Nobody got arrested. Nobody went to jail. Not one. Nobody. No person, no individual. Right. They squeezed who's the one guy? And he was doing some, dirty deals with,
Here's a guy we don't like. Is that enough?
Right, yeah. Scapegoat.
Oh, you mean the CEO? No, nothing
Scapegoat.
like that.
So, and you're right, Peakless Mountaineer, when a business becomes so big that it can no longer manage itself, it either dies or, you're right, it breaks up or it gets bought by another company.
Right.
Right? Absorbed in some way, right? Bought and, turned into something else or whatever. Those businesses, those banks specifically that were bailed out in 2008 should have been allowed to die.
Yes.
Because that's what happens if you overextend yourself, if you borrow too much, if you somehow, lend out money that you don't have and can't pay back, and then your business should die. You're a bad business person.
Yeah. And everyone's concerned about, okay, well, who's going to do these jobs that we need done in order to keep everything running? And it's like, well, if you had let other competitors enter the market instead of making it completely impossible to become a bank, then we would already have their replacements ready to go. But instead, you made all of these regulations that make it just shy of completely impossible to be a bank.
Well, and I mean, we don't need replacement banks. We can just let all the banks go away and, continue to live life.
Because, well, we know that eventually banking will be replaced with software.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the reasons that you need this stuff to go on in the first place are already being replaced by cryptocurrency equivalents that don't overcharge everything and have so much red tape and all of that.
Furthermore, on January 29th, the cryptocurrency trading platform Bittrex Global revealed that it was listing tokenized stocks for a number of the shares the WSB trend has been affecting. The exchange detailed that it made this decision because Bittrex wanted to ensure that retail investors, that's the little guy, have exposure to stocks they may wish to trade anytime during any day of the week, like they should have.
Oh, yeah.
603-283-6160. Is it time for the banking system to collapse? More Free Talk Live coming up.
Excuse me, is this where I get a license to start a new business?
I wouldn't be hasty. You have to get a license to go out of business, too,
Oh, well, look, I've invented this little anti-gravity machine, see?
Oh, is that why you're walking 2 inches above the floor?
Oh, yes, it's very comfortable. It saves on shoe leather.
Yeah, well, you have to fill out these forms and report to the Human Services Department of Manpower Orientation and register with the Fair Employment Practice Commission, the Wage and Hour Division of the Employment Standards Administration, the State Sales and Income Tax Division, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Social Security Administration of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and, of course, OSHA.
OSHA? I thought that was a little town in Wisconsin.
You'll find out. Say, floating around like that could be dangerous. Have you checked with the Consumer Product Safety Commission?
Well, not yet.
Come to think of it, you actually are flying, aren't you? Look, you need to go over to the Federal Aviation Administration and the Transportation...
It's very hard to get anything done these days if you're in business, but free enterprise built this country. Think what could happen if we don't keep it free. A public service of this station and the Center for the Defense of Free Enterprise, Bellevue, Washington.
Besides, we just can't have people floating about unregulated,
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Welcome back to the live call-in talk radio program where you can take control of the airwaves, talk about anything you'd like. It is Free Talk Live, the live Sunday night edition. Our telephone number, if you'd like to join the conversation, is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's myself, the captain.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
We were talking a bit before the show about people who don't understand finance and why they don't, and we talked a bit during the show as well about that. Could it be that more people don't understand basic things like finance and the economy and how money works and fractional reserve banking because Americans are suffering from mass delusional psychosis?
It's a bit of a jump.
It's the best segue I got, pal, so that's what you get. We're segueing into a different article is what I'm trying to say. This from, where is it from even? evmagazine.com. I don't even know how I stumbled upon this, but I did. It's been in show prep for a while. Peakless, you noticed it and were like, can we do that? Can we do that?
Oh, yeah.
Like it's,
Best article ever.
So here we are, evmagazine.com. Psychiatrist, Americans are suffering from mass delusional psychosis because of COVID-19. Now, that might make you think a thing. It's not because of COVID-19. Whenever somebody says because of COVID-19, generally speaking, what they mean is because the government did some things and is now forcing you to do things you don't want to do or didn't want to do in the first place.
Yeah, conflating a virus with the response that we have done to the virus is almost ubiquitous.
Yeah, the United States Congress is not a literal virus.
Although they are a parasite, the entire government is a parasitical organism.
And they certainly cause disease.
They do.
Not to mention a whole lot of death.
The article starts, something sinister is brewing around the current atmosphere of mass panic and the fear stemming from the COVID-19 hysteria. People seem to be losing their minds when it comes to dealing with the pandemic. Perhaps that's basically what's happening. Dr. Mark McDonald is board certified in both child and adolescent psychiatry with extensive additional training in adult psychoanalysis. He specializes in the evaluation and treatment of young people with mental illness, and his practice also serves adults, couples, and families. His opinions have been widely published in local and national news, including the Wall Street Journal and the Federalist. The true public health crisis is psychological in nature. Among some of these opinions, Dr. Mark McDonald believes that the crisis is not medical in nature. The country has always had enough resources to deal with the pandemic. For example, the Navy hospital ship sent to New York City to help deal with a surge in hospitalization was turned back due to a lack of patients. The same thing happened on the West Coast. So the question becomes, what is the actual public health crisis that people are really suffering from? Now, before we go on, not only was that medical ship turned away from New York and the same thing happened on the West Coast, but here in Keene, New Hampshire, they sent a team of folks, I don't know if they were FEMA or they were a team of folks, to literally take over the university here in town and turn that into, a makeshift hospital because they were anticipating a far higher number of bed count than actually happened. And so they did so, they set up bed, and then nothing happened, and they had to take it down and leave. Like a carnival, right? Oh, nobody's coming to the carnival. I guess we better try somewhere else, right? So imagine if that happened here in, what's Keene, 25,000, 30,000 people, right? Where else did it happen?
Right.
Across the globe, right? Everybody like, oh, panic. Let's set up all these facilities. Oh, you're not overwhelmed? Oh, there's not dead bodies in the streets? Oh, my gosh.
You mean we're not just stepping over dead bodies of COVID patients? Astonishing.
Dr. McDonald believes the true public health crisis lies in the widespread fear which morphed and evolved into a form of mass delusional psychosis. In simpler words, the American public is suffering from mass insanity due to their delusional fear of COVID-19. Even when the statistics point to the extremely low fatality rate among children and young adults, the young and the healthy are still terrorized by the chokehold of irrational fear when faced with the coronavirus.
And young here is defined, I think, by under 50 or under 55 or something like that. It's not like just 19-year-olds.
Right. A Colorado family was recently kicked off an airplane because their 2-year-old daughter would not leave her mask on. Her parents weren't even against masking. The toddler just didn't want to have a piece of cloth smothering her face. Well, nor do most people, right? I don't. It isn't even enough that her parents were forcing her to put the mask on as they covered her face against her will. They were still made to exit the flight. So these parents, wearing their masks, have a 2-year-old who didn't want to wear the mask, and they went ahead and forced this 2-year-old to wear the mask, and they still kicked him off the flight.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaking video. I mean, you see the parent trying to soothe her and pet her head while he's holding this mask over her face where she doesn't want it. And even when he's doing that, that's when the attendant comes up and says, "You're going to have to leave the plane now."
I have flown pre-COVID where there was some sort of a fussy baby on the flight, and it annoyed everybody during the whole frickin' flight. And not once did they pull a plane over or, make somebody get off before the plane took off because they had a fussy baby.
I can't see taking my kids on a plane either. I'm an adult. I can make that decision to go through just ridiculous whatever.
Yeah.
I guess I won't be because I can't leave my kids at home while I fly around the country either. But you get the point. I can't see taking my kid on a plane even before the lockdown, before the how are you able to, I guess I don't want to know, but how are you able to do that just in general?
Yeah, I saw I guess I'll call it a read option pass. So there was a couple, and they had to sit the one person was in the row in front and one person was in the row in back. And they would hold the baby up as a signal to hey, will you grab the baby so I can get into my bag and get a thing or what?
Well, no, not just because it's annoying, although I imagine it would be annoying to everyone to have a toddler on a plane. But okay, so I'm not about to put a mask on my kid.
Right.
And you have to go through TSA to get on a plane. So I'm not about to do that either.
Right.
If I decide that there's a really damn good reason for me to get on a plane, I can make that decision.
Right.
I don't even feel entitled to make that decision on behalf of someone else.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to get groped by TSA today. Deal with it. What? No.
Or put in a microwave. Right?
Yeah.
The worst part of this unfortunate situation is the fact that no one else on the plane dared to stand up and back up the toddler's parents against the insanity of forcing a child to cover her face against her will. Well, not a lot of people are standing up for adults either at this point. But yes, it is particularly upsetting. Time and time again, we hear studies about how children are not a vector for infection, yet everyone on the plane was deluded into thinking that a 2-year-old who refuses to put on a mask will kill everyone.
Okay, well, objection, evidence not in, facts not in evidence. That's a jump. They could have just thought, if I mess with the flight attendants, I'm going to have problems. They could have just thought, I don't want to mess with, what are they called? The air marshal people. That doesn't follow from what happens.
Objection noted. In the midst of mandatory masking, have you also noticed a glaring problem about people who get hysterical at those who refuse to wear a mask? Why, yes, I have. As a matter of fact. The scientific fact is that if someone doesn't want to assume the risk of infection, that person should be wearing a mask. And they note the N95 or KN95.
Well, and as far as the evidence, it certainly shows that what they saw happening, they didn't consider worthy of stopping, which means that they didn't think it was that unjust.
No, that's not true either. There's plenty of really unjust. I've been to Boston. I haven't pulled over and opened fire on the Federal Reserve building because it's not going to accomplish anything. That's not a judgment of how unjust it is.
No, but you do say something about the Federal Reserve, and no one says anything about this. You do speak up about
it,
right?
I haven't walked in and told them off. Like, you don't know. I mean,
come on, you haven't driven by and flipped them off, like as you pass by the Federal.
I've never been driving while it was, but
okay. I think that you have done everything in your ability to express your feelings regarding the Federal Reserve.
That doesn't mean that I say things about what I would and wouldn't do if I ever met this individual, but that does not mean that if I was on a plane run by the Federal Reserve that I would try to stop what they were doing to my own detriment and to no one's benefits.
Well, like if I happen to be in this situation, I would at least turn and say, seriously?
603-283-6160. Are you suffering from mass delusion as a result of the government's reaction to COVID? More Free Talk Live on the way.
Freedom! Freedom is the call of the untamed Scotsman and all others that want to feel the wind under their kilts.
At Free Talk Live, we love the breezy, swinging feeling that only a kilt from Sport Kilt can give.
We teamed up with Sport Kilt to let you experience their form of freedom at a discount. Go to kilts.freetalklive.com and see a picture of Richie and me in our kilts.
And then head over to sportkilt.com. Get some stylish freedom for yourself and use code FTL for a 10% discount. Sportkilt.com.
What if the United States and the Soviet Union had fought on land, sea, air, and the astral plane, struggled for dominion across parallel dimensions or on the surface of the moon? What wonders would have been unveiled? What terrors would have haunted mankind from those dark and dismal dimensions? Come closer, peer through a glass darkly, and discover the horrifying alternative visions of World War III from some of today's greatest minds in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. Weird World War III. Available now from Bain Books at bainbooks.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
A big storm setting sights on the Northeast. I'm Steve Rappaport, Fox News. A winter storm expected to blanket parts of the region with up to 18 inches of snow.
As it hits the East Coast, the Mid-Atlantic, and stretching up a little farther north, that is where we're going to see the most significant snowfall. Still some snow stretching back off across the Great Lakes, but we're beginning to see some of that snow through D.C., and this will be lifting north to New York in the next couple of hours, eventually up towards Boston. No surprise here, winter storm watches and warnings cross a very large area, much of the East Coast getting you up into New England. We're getting into a good heavy snow by early tomorrow morning in New York City, stretching farther south, continuing perhaps in D.C., definitely in Philadelphia areas where they will see very heavy snow.
Fox News meteorologist Adam Klotz. Senate Republicans making a counteroffer to a proposed coronavirus relief bill. Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana.
So we have $160 billion. We match this figure when it comes to vaccination. To increase capacity to make more vaccine more quickly, as well as to adapt to these variants which are coming across.
The White House wants Congress to approve a nearly $2 trillion plan.
If we don't get this package as designed out the door quickly, we risk having 4 million fewer jobs at the end of this year. That's from Moody's.com. We risk taking a year longer to get to full employment.
Council of Economic Advisors member Jared Bernstein, both appearing on Fox News Sunday. Police in Russia arresting more than 4,700 people in protests demanding the release of opposition leader Alexei Navalny.
In the capital of Moscow, people marched to the jail where Navalny is being held. As they gathered in the street, the group faced a heavy law enforcement presence. Riot police hit some with batons while chasing down and arresting others. Reports do indicate Navalny's wife, Yulia, was among those being detained, as protesters show they are willing to fight for what they see as justice.
Fox's Trey Yingst. America is listening to Fox News. President Biden plans to sign executive orders Tuesday that the White House says will undo immigration policies enacted by former President Trump. One order creates a task force to reunite migrant families separated at the border. The president is also expected to increase refugee admissions to the U.S. The president has already signed dozens of executive orders and actions after taking office less than 2 weeks ago. Public school teachers in Chicago threatening to strike if they get locked out of email and learning platforms. The district wants to resume in-person learning tomorrow, but many teachers are not on board.
The Chicago Teachers Union and Chicago Public Schools have been at the bargaining table this weekend. Yesterday, the school district says it has reached tentative agreements on 4 key areas with the union, including health and safety protocols, ventilation, contact tracing, and health and safety committees. But they're still in negotiations.
Fox's Christina Coleman. Many teachers don't want to return to classrooms until after they get vaccinated. Recent deployments have military leaders worried about the National Guard getting overextended.
Major General James Eifert of the Florida National Guard told the state Senate, "We cannot adequately support the state's citizens on Florida's worst day with the size of the National Guard at this point," as he cited multiple deployments for COVID response and civil unrest. The National Guard Association of the United States told the Military Times there could be a problem retaining Guard members in some states. More than 25,000 Guard kept watch over the nation's capital during President Joe Biden's inauguration. Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
San Francisco police arresting 2 people for an attempted robbery that left famous private investigator Jack Palladino on life support. The San Francisco Chronicle reports Palladino may have inadvertently solved his own case thanks to photos recovered from the camera that the suspects tried but failed to steal. The 76-year-old fell and hit his head on the pavement during the attack. Palladino is not expected to survive. I'm Steve Rappaport, and this is Fox News.
I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm.
Procter & Gamble introduced a beginner series of its Bounty paper towel brand this week, specifically designed to assist novices in acclimating to the household cleaning product. The new entry-level paper towels will reportedly feature bold labels and guide markers clearly printed on the surface of each sheet, as well as a step-by-step instructional DVD in each package.
Make sure that your paper towel is directly on top of the stain and not beside the stain. Otherwise, you won't absorb any liquid. Place your paper towel directly on the stain and make a gentle wiping motion.
In this week's local news, an area man knows that deep down, he's not done vomiting. In other news, Los Angeles residents are plagued by a roving pack of feral celebrities living in the Hollywood Hills. God wonders what happens to humans after they die. And a local dad clarifies that this is not a food stop. I was told early on that I would never be able to procreate, but I imagine the cold, dejected sensation I experience at the end of this news summary is similar to what a father feels when holding a child of his own flesh and blood.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Six 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. I'm singing the phone number.
Trying to make it a jingle?
That's right. It doesn't have a very jingly, cadence to it.
I've seen it work for less memorable numbers.
Yes. Anyway, that is our telephone number, 603-283-6160. If you'd like to join the conversation, we'll get to your calls and thoughts momentarily. It is Free Talk Live. You are in the right place for the Sunday night edition. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
We've been talking about this article from EV Magazine, claiming that folks might be suffering from mass delusional psychosis because of, this is because of COVID-19. What they really mean is because of, all the overreaction by governments and forcing people to do things they don't want to do.
Well, and a lot of it comes down to the fear-mongering.
Oh, of course it does. And belief, right? People get their information from the glowing box, right? That's the television, for those of you who aren't familiar with my witty retorts. They get their information from the glowing box and they go, well, I've seen it on TV. It must be true. It must be. And these same people will say things like, well, you can't believe everything you read on the internet.
Yeah.
Well, you can't believe everything you see on the television either, pal.
Oh, where'd you get that information? From the internet.
But before we go on talking about that, let's go to, we have Scott in Florida calling. Scott, you're on Free Talk Live.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all right. I know America's not all right. And, I wanted just to follow up the other night when I called you about how I was so pleased that Reddit day traders shorted GameStop and AMC.
The Reddit people did not short GameStop. Wall Street shorted GameStop. The hedge fund shorted GameStop. Where the Reddit people bought GameStop.
Right.
Yeah, they did what is called a long. They owned it. They actually had the thing. It's not a short. It's a long.
I'm happy what happened. I'm happy that Wall Street got beaten at its own game. These hedge fund managers deserve to. They deserve to be swindled, just like they've been swindling the American people for generations. But what I didn't add to the conversation the other night, it hits home to me because do you remember when Lehman Brothers went bankrupt?
2008, right?
Do you remember that?
I remember 2008 very well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, September 15th, 2008. It hit home for me because that was the day I got a call from my broker at Morgan Stanley, and he said, Scott, turn on the TV. And I said, why? He says, Lehman Brothers, they're going bankrupt. So I says, what are you saying? And he said, the $190,000 you had in common stock? I said, yeah. He said, it's gone.
And
my
it's
father,
gone.
Wait, did he advise you against doing that? Did he tell you it was a good idea to put $190,000 in one stock? And not
no, this was before. I had it. We held. It was my father's and mine. We had it for years, and no one ever thought that Lehman Brothers would go out of business. It's like if Bank of America was going to go out of business or Citibank was going to go out of business.
Right, but you still, he should have advised you against having everything in one stock.
Yeah, putting all your eggs in one basket.
Stocks. I didn't lose everything, but
okay.
I did lose $190,000 from Lehman Brothers. And
how long?
The point I'm making is that,
hang on, Scott. How long did you have the money in there before you lost it? Approximately, was it 5 years, 10 years?
Oh, maybe at least a decade.
Okay, so it was a long time that you had, and you were probably, this was part of your retirement plan and your overall financial strategy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
And anyway, to make a long story short, everyone knows Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. But, it didn't have to, and it was deliberate by the greed and incompetence of one disgraced CEO by the name of Richard Fuld. Does that name ring a bell to you, Richard Fuld?
I believe I heard it during the 2008 fiasco, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah. He lives in a mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut. The point I'm making is he never went to jail. He needs to go to prison like Bernie Madoff. He's a multimillionaire. He never had to go into jail. He never was given fines.
Right.
Well, and he never went bankrupt. In a regular system, in a free market system, if you're driving all these companies into the ground, you don't get to go home to your mansion.
You don't get to keep your bonuses.
Right.
Well, I was reading an article a few years ago. As far as I'm concerned, he's living very well. He lives in a mansion.
Oh, no, he is. I'm just saying, if this was a system that wasn't rigged, you can run a company into the ground, but then you lose everything, right? You can't bankrupt 5 companies and then go home to your mansion and your maids and your Lamborghinis.
Right. So, like, before the government got involved in the financial markets and banking in particular, there was something called responsibility that everybody had to sort of have. Right. So if it was, Scott and Sons Bank, you opened a bank, you had to be very responsible with everybody's money. You had to only lend out, a fraction of what you had on hand, because that was all the risk that you could afford to take with other people's money. Because guess what? If you lent out too much and you lost on your bet, the people whose money you lost, they would come for you. Right. So the government, of course, has put in protections, right, in the form of corporatism. And assorted other banking rules.
And since you mentioned corporatism, like, that fundamentally is the difference here. So the individual human being actually making this decision doesn't suffer for it.
Right.
The liability goes to the corporation, whereas all of the potential profit goes to the individual. And that's the nature of the scam that is a corporation.
And Scott, that's why this guy, Mr. Fogg, is still living quite well in his mansion.
Yeah, Mr. Fuld, and he's not the only one. I mean, the other night, as your listeners don't remember, Jamie Dimon is another villain. J.P. Morgan deliberately suppressed the price of precious metals. Who could forget Bernie Madoff? 55 billion, not million, billion. He wiped out investors. In fact, some committed suicide in 2008 when he's doing 150 years.
Yeah, isn't Madoff?
All of these people need to do jail time. All of them. I want to leave you with a thought. If you rob a bank and you pass a teller a note and you say $10 or you're gonna go to jail. Even if you don't even use a firearm, you're going to jail.
Yep.
Banks are actually really easy to rob. They're pretty much instructed if you go in and say, this is a robbery, give me money, that, I can't be that opposed to robbing banks, but your point is taken.
But there's no recourse for these scoundrels, and they are scum, and they are evil, and I don't want you to be annoyed with me.
Not at all. I agree with you.
No, they're not all Jewish, but Richard Fuld was,
except for the Jewish part.
And Jamie Dimon is, and unfortunately, when they cry about anti-Semitism, maybe what they really should cry about is that why are they committing these crimes?
Don't you think that kind of detracts from the issue, though? So the issue is banking and Ponzi schemes and scams and regulations. And whatever happens to these people for that, it's too good for them and something worse should happen. But I don't care about what ethnicity is doing it. Whoever's doing it should face really hard consequences and not be allowed back in any society ever.
Yeah, I mean, number one, you really shouldn't be looking at you shouldn't be looking at group membership. You should be looking at individuals performing actions. Number two, if you insist on looking at a group membership, look at the group that is these CEOs, these managers, not some kind of racial or religious identity.
A group you joined. You joined Chase Bank. You didn't join whatever bloodline.
Well, and let's not forget the relationship between these bankers and the government. These people jump back and forth between government jobs and banking jobs.
The bank and government, two different entities.
Okay, but I'm saying...
Can I say one more thing before I close?
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
You mentioned the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, I heard you when you were discussing it. Just a fast remark on the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not federal. It's not a reserve. It's not part of the United States government. It's a private institution, and it is an evil, evil, evil bank, and it needs to be shut down, and we need to go back to sound money such as gold and silver. But unfortunately, that's not going to be the case.
It's the most evil institution on the
Thanks
face of the
call,
earth
Scott.
that ever has or will be, I hope will be, but that ever has or is existed.
And it's worth mentioning that a sound form of money exists in cryptocurrency.
Matt Taibbi wrote a great article that details all of the people who should be in jail as a result of the 2008 financial fiasco. You can go Google that. He wrote it for the Rolling Stone magazine. It's a great article that details everything. 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live on the way.
Bitcoin.com is the best source for learning about cryptocurrency. Go there now, click on Get Started at the top of the page. Once you do that, you'll find a cornucopia of information, neatly organized for your needs. If you're a knowledgeable crypto user, check out news.bitcoin.com where you can get the latest headlines. Bitcoin.com is your source for buying cryptocurrency, getting a wallet app, mining, trading, and all the latest cryptocurrency news, all on a slick and easy-to-use website. All put together by the best minds in the business to teach you about cryptocurrency. Bitcoin.com. Divvy's been a pretty good investment for Free Talk Live. Their ad campaign started in September 2019, and from mid-March to mid-July, the values soared by 10 times. It's not too late. Divvy's new wallet hasn't even released yet, and other things are happening that I can't even say on the radio. If you want to invest and potentially do well, go to DivvyProject.org. I can tell you that FTL is deepening its partnership with the guys from DivvyProject.org. Past performance is not an indication of future profit. DivvyProject.org. DIVI Project.org.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Having taken her father's throne, Sarah Calhoun has fallen out with one of her best allies, and her brother Nathaniel heads into Imperial Philadelphia with a reckless plan. Her uncle Thomas, armed with new powers and new allies, aims to remove Sarah from her throne and from the world of the living. To survive and to gain the strength she needs to fight an impossible war, Sarah must unite the Mound Builder Kings to enact an ancient rite that will propel her beyond mortality. Servant Daughter by T.J. Butler is the newest entry in the Dragon Award-winning Witchy War series from Bain Books at BainBooks.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for listening. It is Free Talk Live, the Sunday night edition. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to join the conversation. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
And I just wanted to take a second to let you know, I've been accused recently of not promoting myself very well. Somebody that I've known for, I don't know, several months at least, probably close to 6 months, said, you do parody songs, Captain? And I'm like, where have you been? Like, well, you don't do a very good job of promoting yourself. I'm like, I don't? So I just wanted to say, go to lordkickass.com if you enjoy Weird Al-style parody music, except for I do far more, we'll say, cussing. Not all of my songs have cussing in them. For example, I did some... actually in cooperation with Ian here for Christmas, I rewrote some carols in the key of COVID. And I recorded one of them. It's The Little Lockdown Boy over at lordkickass.com. So if anybody's out there listening and you didn't know that I do parody music, go visit lordkickass.com, please and thank you. So anyway, we were talking about this article from EV Magazine that says that a psychiatrist actually says Americans are suffering from mass delusional psychosis because of COVID-19. Now, you might be like, what? How is that possible? Well, it is. In the midst of mandatory masking, have you also noticed the glaring problem about people who get hysterical at those who refuse to wear a mask? I do. The scientific fact is that if someone doesn't want to assume the risk of infection, that person should be wearing a mask at all times when they venture outside.
Well, specifically an N95 or KN95 mask.
Correct. Or something even better than that. I mean, I've seen the actual masks that folks in clean room environments have to wear, or folks in other medical environments have to wear. It's something out of like NASA. You know, big pipes sticking out the sides, and like it's completely vacuum sealed.
Yeah, they do make systems that will protect you from the elements,
right?
Whatever those elements happen to be. And if you're only going out when you have to because you thought this was actually the plague, you'd only be going to the grocery store and whatever government agencies are requiring your presence. So you wouldn't be going out that much. So you wouldn't have to be buying filters like every day or anything like that.
Yet, in almost every encounter, we've observed people who tend to chastise others for not wearing a mask. They themselves have always only worn an ineffective paper or cloth mask. Why would these people act this irrationally? The answer, it's probably delusional psychosis, as mentioned by Dr. McDonald. If someone were serious about minimizing all risk of contracting the coronavirus, the correct way of achieving that would be to properly wear an N95 mask, as well as frequently wash and disinfect their hands. But those who are just putting on a cloth or paper mask, as they also constantly touch their face while they adjust their mask, They are in reality doing practically nothing to minimize the risk of infection. Oh, there's some neat graphics here.
Yeah, it shows the difference between your cloth mask, your paper mask, and an N95 mask.
Oh, they are pretty stark, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, we've been talking about memes a little bit here tonight. There's a great meme that says, why can you wear anything for a mask? Because it's about obedience. It's not about your health.
Yeah, like when Richie Rich went to the Apple store with a much better mask, and they said, you need to wear this one because it's not about it being effective. It's about optics.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, don't wear the far superior mask. Wear this crappy one because all the folks are doing it.
Well, did they give him one of the silly blue ones?
Yes, they handed him the silly little disposable mask and said, you need to wear this instead.
Genius is my ass.
Well, that's exactly what it's about. Optics. You need to be seen complying.
Yet more often than not, we witness people who are more concerned with making sure others assume the responsibility for everyone else. If you don't wear a mask, you're effectively killing grandma, scream the pro-mask Nazis. Instead of sourcing and donating N95 masks to the elderly to ensure that grandma will be able to properly minimize the risk of getting infected, they'd rather yell and threaten others who would dare question the effectiveness of even wearing a mask at all. Instead of facing reality, the delusional person would rather live in their world of make-believe. But in order to keep faking reality, they'll have to make sure that everyone else around them also pretends to live in their imaginary world. In simpler words, the delusional person rejects reality. And in this rejection of reality, others have to play along with how they view the world. Otherwise, their world will not make sense to them. It's why the delusional person will get angry when they face someone who doesn't conform to their world view. Now,
and you do see that behavior in a lot of different worldviews.
Well, I see it in religion. And not all religions, but I expect that it probably has occurred in all religion at one point or another. Somebody says, no, my way is the correct way to believe, and if you don't believe that way, why, you're going to hell, or whatever it is, right?
Right.
You know?
And, I mean, why would someone get angry for you disagreeing with them? Well, one very specific reason is because you are calling into question their worldview. And that is something that people find incredibly uncomfortable because, frankly, they're not totally certain about their worldview being correct. And you're putting a demand on their ability to process information.
And they'd rather be comfortable than right at the end of the day, because if that wasn't the case, they would be like, well, hey, somebody not wearing a mask doesn't really prove you're wrong here. They would be like, well, hey, here's a new allegation or new evidence. Let me look at this because maybe I'm wrong about something. And if I find out I'm wrong about something, I can quit being wrong. Thank you for telling me I was wrong, so now I can stop it.
We experienced something like this in the freedom communities with folks who might not be exposed to our philosophies. And we start talking about things like maybe there shouldn't be a government. And they go, who will build the roads? Right? We've made them uncomfortable with their belief system. They believe that, for whatever reason, they believe that without government, roads would not exist.
I'm more of a fan of just sitting down with them and explaining the various ways you could get roads without a state.
Right.
But
And that's great when people are actually trying to find new information.
But I'm sure...
hey, that's new information. It makes them a little bit curious. But when they respond not with curiosity, not even with dismissal, but with anger.
Right. And I've had this happen when trying to explain how roads might be possible. The person gets angry, visibly like spitting, angry.
If they're no longer engaging, then you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
You can't convert somebody who doesn't want to be converted. And you can't help somebody who doesn't want to be helped.
Right. But I'm just saying that mass delusion exists far more frequently in this world than the average person is willing to accept.
Oh yeah, statism is the world's largest religion.
And it's truly humiliating when you realize that you have been participating in a mass delusion. So that's part of why people respond as if you are attacking their very essence if you disagree with them.
Indeed. 603-283-6160. Have you experienced somebody suffering from mass psychological delusion regarding the COVID? More Free Talk Live is on the way. 603-283-6160.
When you're coping with bad news and the news media come calling, and they will, don't clam up. As notorious political figures find out the hard way, the cover-up can be worse than the crime. So get out in front of unfavorable news about your company, your group, or organization, or yourself. The sooner you confront a negative story, the sooner it will be over. Responding as quickly to negative stories as you do to positive ones enhances your credibility. Hiding embarrassing information or lying will do more damage than damage control. Never stonewall. Tell your side of the story, use specifics, and detail what corrective action has already been taken. Respond in kind. If the issue is emotional, don't sound like a cold, unemotional Mr. Spock. For more tips on critical communication skills for the way things are now, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Free Talk Live.
The only thing that separates government from the mafia is their cloak of legitimacy. The government is nothing more than an armed gang of violent people masquerading as though they're something else. They've got these PR systems in place to make people think that there's something special about their armed gang, to make them not realize that that's all they really are. They've got uniforms, they've got robes, they've got courtrooms, they've got this aura, they've got flags, they've got pledges of allegiance, they run the schools, they run the roads, they're everywhere. So you think that they're supposed to be there. They've been there since you've been born, so they must always have to be there. Well, that's not true. They're an organized gang of criminals. You know how I know they're criminals? Because they're using force on people, and that's wrong. It's just wrong to force people to do things.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. Is spreading the message of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace around the globe worth $2 per month to you? As you may already know, in addition to our internet feed, LRN.FM broadcasts on free-to-air satellite across North and Central America, as well as Sub-Saharan Africa. And we've been available on satellite for free 24/7 since 2010. The LRN.FM free-to-air satellite signal is reaching some of the most oppressive regimes in the world, and there's no doubt our ideas are making an impact. You can learn more about the channel's impact by watching the 3-minute video at fund.lrn.fm. If you'd like to help free minds globally with our ideas of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace, you can donate as little as $2 per month via fund.lrn.fm. You can help us continue and expand our satellite broadcast to multiple continents. Visit fund.lrn.fm today, and thank you for your help. Don't forget to share the link on social media. That's fund.lrn.fm.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. It is Free Talk Live. You're in the right place. You've tuned into the right station. You've streamed the right stream. You're listening to the right podcast, or otherwise gaining audio in some way, shape, or form. I read an article recently that they've devised a way to send audio signals to your head without any sort of like receiver or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So perhaps Free Talk Live can get on that station. Anyway, our number, if you want to join the conversation, is 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
We've been discussing this article from EV Magazine claiming that Americans are suffering from mass delusional psychosis. And this one says it's just because of COVID-19. And, of course, we know that when they say COVID-19, we mean the government's overreach and all of their mandates surrounding COVID-19, not the actual disease itself.
Including, in case there are people out there that think they're different, the mass media's approach to it.
Oh, yes, indeed. Continuing on, because objective reality threatens to unravel their carefully crafted imaginary world, the delusional person lashes out at others who dare act in contradiction to their delusions. Wearing a mask becomes more about social solidarity than it is about following the science.
Fauci actually suggested that a little while ago.
Well,
really?
Yeah, didn't he also suggest wearing more than one mask?
I haven't looked that up to see if that was accurate yet, but I know he said the thing about, well, first of all, he lied, but he said, well, it's more for, a signal. It's more for signaling, basically.
Wow.
It's virtue signaling is what it is. I read somewhere that Fauci is the highest paid government employee.
Huh.
That makes it sound like he makes millions of dollars. It was like $250 or $275.
Right, but that's his salary, right? We know that when people get into government positions, they use their positions to benefit financially in other ways, i.e., chumming up with people to, make sure that their business gets favored over some other business.
Well, yeah,
and then later on down the line, they'll give a donation to their campaign or otherwise, benefit them financially in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, the most straightforward way was said to me is, why would someone spend millions of dollars to get a job that pays $100,000?
Right.
There is a reason.
There's many of them. At any rate, wearing a mask becomes more about social solidarity than it is about following science. Instead of rethinking their worldview, they have to compel others to fit into the reality of their own making. Take a look at the example of how this physician in Ontario had his account suspended for daring to point out the truth. This is Gil Nimny, MD. It looks like a Twitter. I can't help but shake my head tonight. I just finished my shift at the COVID-19 assessment center at my hospital. I decided to walk through my ER on my way to the change room. Empty! In all caps, he says. I shake my head at my colleagues who go on Twitter and TV ranting about how our ER is crazy.
That doesn't even make sense because you don't stay in the ER if something bad. If you were sick to that degree, you wouldn't stay in the ER. That's not what the ER is for. The ER is for stabilization.
True, but you do see the same thing with ICUs. People are talking about, oh, no, they're all full up, and no, there's no one in the intensive care unit.
Not any more full than they have been historically during a flu season. It's the same kind of delusion that drives religious... Oh, I pointed this out earlier.
Right.
Oh, nice. It's the same kind of delusion that drives religious fanatics who would kill their own daughters because she dared to dishonor her family. In those societies, not only are the honor killings acceptable, but the killers are normally protected by their own family members. In our society today, fueled by the COVID-induced delusion, it's acceptable to kick a toddler off a plane for not wearing a mask when there's evidence that toddlers rarely spread the virus. It's acceptable for tech companies to suspend a physician's social media account because he dared contradict the message that's being fed to the public about COVID-19. Those who are authoritarian in nature don't care about seeking out the truth. Rather, they'd prefer to seek out authority. It's one of the reasons why you are seeing so many people who'd happily approve the silencing of any medical experts whose views contradict the WHO or the CDC guidelines. Obey the rules becomes the more important item rather than questioning if the rules were legitimate to begin with. And we've seen that, the Great Barrington Declaration, signed by tens, 20, 30, 40,000 medical professionals and hundreds of thousands of other people. And it's barely gotten a mention. We've mentioned it here repeatedly on Free Talk Live. But, of course, the science is settled, and nobody will have any of it. But there have been brave souls who've dared to defy authority when they knew that the truth was on their side. A classic example is Galileo Galilei. Well, that's an interesting name.
Galileo Galilei, yes. Yeah.
Who dared question the ruling power's claim that the sun revolves around the earth. It does seem rather tragic that just like Galileo, who was sentenced to a life under house arrest for daring to question the ruling authority's narrative during the Renaissance, those of us today who are also questioning the mainstream authority science on COVID-19 pandemic will end up like Galileo, as we too are placed under complete house arrest. If this sounds like an exaggeration, keep in mind how there have already been talks about banning access to facilities for those who will refuse to receive the vaccine. Ticketmaster, for example, is requiring a person's proof of vaccination before they could attend public events. Even Andrew Yang, the former Democratic presidential candidate, is asking if it's possible to deploy proof of vaccination barcodes so that we can track those who refuse to be vaccinated.
And you definitely see us ramping up for that even here in New Hampshire, where they had in place a vaccine registry, but it was optional.
Yep.
You could opt out of it. You had to opt into it. And if you had any religious objections, they wouldn't impose it. And then his so-called excellency decided that he is the entire legislative branch as well, and repealed those parts of that law so that it's now mandatory for every vaccination that is done in this state to be recorded in the same place.
Yep.
And that is obviously a first step to refusing services to those that don't have whatever vaccines they decide are necessary.
Perhaps the most important point mentioned by Dr. McDonald is the lasting negative effect this mass paranoia will have on future generations. Dr. McDonald has witnessed the highest increase of psychiatric issues among his young patients ever since the lockdowns and their closure started. They've suffered more than I've ever seen in my 9 years of private practice, he said, in a panel discussing the reopening of schools. He gave an example of a local homeowners association deciding to close their private park because they noticed that children are playing on the grass without wearing a mask. I think we covered that story here on Free Talk Live. This was dangerous because while children were rolling around on the grass, they're also touching it and therefore could potentially spread or pick up the virus from the grass.
There's way worse things that are normally in the ground than a cold.
They could potentially spread or pick up the virus from the grass and kill their grandparents when they go home with the virus.
Like, can I just sign a I won't go around old people waiver? Like, if this is actually the problem, if I'm going to kill this guy's grandparents, can I just, like, promise not to go around them?
And a quick mention on the playing in the grass thing, too. Like, okay, yes, it does potentially contain some pathogens. However, it also contains the bacteria that are necessary for your microbiome.
Yes.
So if children specifically do not get that stuff in their mouths and in their digestive tracts, they won't be able to digest their food. It will cause them all sorts of medical problems throughout their life, including allergies.
Yeah. If you take children and put them in a bubble where nothing ever bad gets into them, right? They're not going to build their immune system. And they're going to be malfunctioning adults every time they're out of that bubble.
And not just won't build their immune system, but human beings cannot on our own digest our food. We rely on bacteria to do the lion's share of the work.
Yep.
And if we don't get that helpful bacteria into our system, then it's going to kill us.
To your point about the elderly, COVID had a nickname early on. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah.
What is it?
Can I say that?
The Boomer Doomer. The Boomer Doomer. Right, because all the baby boomers are getting old now. 603-283-6160 is our phone number if you'd like to comment on the mass psychosis surrounding COVID-19. More Free Talk Live on the way.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it.
George, you can go this way. You can't do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring signs into their rally.
Walk with me. Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa. Hey. Who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today. This is...
You ain't going to make it.
Wait a minute. Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable! Why are you running from me? Because you're scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this? Bureaucrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com. So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up at any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Free Talk Live. We're here 7 nights a week, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Our telephone number is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's myself, Peakless Mountaineer, and Melanie tonight. And we've been talking about this article from EV Magazine that claims that folks are suffering from mass delusional psychosis as a result of, well, this says COVID-19, but we all know that it's a result of the government mandates and lockdowns.
And media hysteria.
And just people get uncomfortable when their beliefs are challenged. And some of these people have their beliefs so deeply rooted in their favorite media program, whether it's Fox or CNN or you name it, whatever television program they're watching, that they can't get over it. They can't get by it. And so, of course, this makes them angry when confronted with new information that might challenge their belief.
Well, and there is a natural anxiety that people feel when you point out that what they are trusting is not worthy of the trust they give it.
Yeah.
Because that puts the impetus on them to, okay, well, if I stop trusting this, that means that I have to put forth the effort to do something I don't know how to do, which is find a worthwhile source of information.
Right. Now, we run into this in the freedom community anyway, when we talk to folks about, our belief that government should not exist because it violates consent and just in its existence. And people will, of course, get angry at us for suggesting such a thing. And I equate that to people's reaction, the getting mad part. I equate that to, not equate. I think it happens in part because people lie to children all the time. Specifically, I'm thinking about Santa Claus in this particular instance, right? People lie to children about Santa Claus, right? And these are their parents, right? The people that they're supposed to trust the most, the people who feed them and clothe them and take care of them, right? Because kids aren't able to take care of themselves. And then these people, for whatever reason, decide, hey, you know what? There's a jolly fat man, who's going to come down a chimney and leave you some presents once a year, right? It's a straight lie. Right? If you're a kid and you're listening, Santa Claus is not real, by the way.
And that's got to be absolutely heartbreaking, not only to realize that there is no Santa Claus, but to realize that you've been lied to about the physical existence of this person.
By the most authoritative people in your life.
The ones that are ordinarily the ones you can be most certain actually have your best interests at heart.
Right. So basically, they've ripped away your reality, right? You've believed them all up until this point in your life, until you discover or are otherwise told that Santa Claus does not exist. And it's the same reaction, right? You rip out somebody's reality. It takes a kid a while to recover from that if they, if they're not told in the right way, or if they, they get angry at their parents. You said Santa Claus was real. They get angry in the same way that people do when you start talking about how government exists in violation of consent, right? They get angry at you because they believe government is necessary and it's real.
What do you
they
mean
have
there's
the same
no government
reaction.
benevolence?
Right. And the same thing applies here to people who question the narrative about COVID-19 and the government overreaction. People believe what the television has told them. And when you dare to question that or present them with new information, they also get angry in the same way the children get angry when they find out Santa Claus is
If it
not
was
real.
a lie, they couldn't put it on TV.
So speaking of children, this generation of children is basically not only being traumatized, but also being taught to accept the feeling of unjustified guilt about themselves just for being children.
Yeah, imagine a kid who's told, because everyone's freaking out that they're playing on the grass, they're being told that they can't play outside because it might kill grandpa if they did.
Right. And these comments are not an exaggeration, as the comments on YouTube showed countless adults calling the toddler who refused to put on a mask a brat for acting like a normal toddler.
Or just a normal person, really, at that point.
Yeah. It's not normal for children to grow up thinking that everyone is a danger to everyone else. We can thank the adults who are perpetuating this trauma due to their mass delusions. And in closing, as Dr. McDonald stated in one of his talks, he is concerned about the ultimate end of society's delusional psychosis. It's not unthinkable that the final outcome would be total societal control on every aspect of your life. Consider this. The endpoint of a mentally ill person is for them to be put under a controlled environment. That's an institution like an asylum, for example, where all of their freedoms are restricted. And it's looking more and more like that's the endpoint of where this mass psychosis is heading. So, I can't disagree with this psychiatrist.
Yeah, and
Dr. McDonald's spot on.
And what's terrible right now is that the people at the moment who are most in risk of being put in some kind of institution, of asylum, are actually the ones that are going, well, wait, let's look at the evidence.
Right. And we here at Free Talk Live have continued to espouse, hey, look at the evidence. What does the evidence say? Can you point to the facts? Can you point to, real, tangible, items that show that this is indeed the case? And over again, yes, COVID is a disease. People are going to get it, right? I think we're all probably going to get it eventually, right?
Well, most of us have probably had it.
But it's certainly not the boomer doomer that they led everybody to believe it was when it first came out with their faulty models about contagions and all that kind of thing. There is one more bit here at the end of this article. It looks like a tweet from, I don't know who this person is, Candace Owens. But the tweet says, it's pretty incredible to consider that right now, governments are like, in order to keep you safe, we need to impoverish you, imprison you, force mask and vaccinate you, plus separate you from your family, And there are millions of people out there that are just like, okay.
Yeah, that's the part that gets, like, they should not have been able to do this.
No.
Even if they did the replace your income thing that some other countries did, like, that would be really bad, but at least it would make sense. But the government just walked up to people one day a year ago and was like, hey, how about you just be unemployed indefinitely? And they were like, all right. And that was it.
Yeah, and you look at, like, each level of this is a tip of the iceberg on something enormous. Okay, so one of the things that we're having a big societal argument about is free speech, like whether hate speech laws should exist and all of that. I mean, the most automatic, I mean, literally unstoppable form of self-expression is your face. Like, if you feel an emotion, your face will show it, even if it's for only a fraction of a second.
Yep.
And that is absolutely stopped. And people are okay with that.
I mean, this isn't safe in places that have large amounts of valuables that are able to be carried in hands away. Like, you need to have situational awareness and look at people and be like, that guy looks like he's about to rob the place. That guy's looking for the bathroom, and that guy
looks like he's stoned or whatever.
Like,
yeah,
but you can't. So
yeah, and another level of it is, okay, well, we're just going to stop the economy. I mean, there was a time where people were suspicious that the government might take over the economy, and that would be a problem.
Surprise!
And no, we're cool with it. Well, how about we just arbitrarily tell you that you are now imprisoned? Not for doing anything, just for existing. Well, now you're locked in your house.
Yeah, there was a bit of commotion around the prison industrial complex for a while. People questioning how come there's so many prisons being built, and why are most of them being built by private companies, instead of being built, by the government, for example. I mean, they were being built by, in cooperation, but, whatever.
They contracted it out, but now it's just like this guy's prison.
Right. Now, yeah, the Dave F. Smith prison or whatever it is. And so that kind of went away, right? We didn't hear much more about that or I didn't anyway. Maybe I stopped paying attention to it closely, but it seemed to have fallen off the radar as far as the mainstream media is concerned. And then I realized when this all kicked in, what was the terminology that they used? Lockdown. We're going to put everybody into lockdown. What is that? That's a prison term. Right?
Yeah, why did they stop building the prisons? Well, because they decided to use your house instead.
Bingo. They were just like, oh, we don't need to build anything when people already have a place to stay. We'll just make sure they stay there. The prison is your mind. You have the ability to take off the mask and go outside and go wherever you want to right now. This will only end when you do. There's no government entity that's going to come in and be like, okay, it's all over. You guys can go back to normal now.
You're the savior you've been waiting for on this.
More Free Talk Live on the way.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Divvy's been a pretty good investment for Free Talk Live. Their ad campaign started in September 2019, and from mid-March to mid-July, the values soared by 10 times. It's not too late. Divvy's new wallet hasn't even released yet, and other things are happening that I can't even say on the radio. If you want to invest and potentially do well, go to divvyproject.org. I can tell you that FTL is deepening its partnership with the guys from divvyproject.org. Past performance is not an indication of future profit. divvyproject.org. D-I-V-I project.org.
Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Winter without the Wonderland. I'm Steve Rappaport, Fox News. A major storm that pummeled the Midwest now heading up the East Coast. Some areas could see as much as 18 inches of snow.
No surprise here. Winter storm watches and warnings crossed a very large area, much of the East Coast getting you up into New England. We're getting into a good heavy snow by early tomorrow morning in New York City, stretching farther south, continuing perhaps in D.C., definitely in Philadelphia areas where they will see very heavy snow. This continues its slow move throughout the day on Monday. Tuesday, by the time we get there, we are beginning to get on the backside of this system, and it continues to kind of push on out of the area.
Fox News meteorologist Adam Klotz. A group of Senate Republicans making a counteroffer to a nearly $2 trillion coronavirus relief package.
10 Senate Republicans have just sent a letter to President Joe Biden requesting a meeting to discuss their new COVID relief plan. They write, quote, "Our proposal reflects many of your stated priorities, and with your support, we believe that this plan could be approved quickly by Congress with bipartisan support." Congressional Democrats say they're preparing to move forward on the Biden administration's $1.9 trillion plan without Republican support. Republicans have objected to the overall price of the White House bill and some of the proposal's specifics, like raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour and funding to state and local governments. The 10 Senate Republicans say their plan costs about $600 billion.
Fox's Rich Edson. Former President Trump's office says trial attorneys David Schoen and Bruce L. Castor will lead the defense team in his impeachment trial, which begins next week. The former president parted ways with his previous lead lawyers a day earlier. The president is charged with incitement of insurrection stemming from the Capitol riot that left 5 people dead, including a police officer. A conviction is not likely. America is listening to Fox News. President Biden plans to sign executive orders this week focusing on immigration.
Those executive orders don't even include some of the action he's already taken, like stopping construction of former President Trump's border wall, also stopping that Trump travel ban. One he plans to sign, and it would establish a task force that would reunite families separated at the border. Then candidate Biden on the trail talked about this issue.
Fox's David Spunt at the White House. The president is also expected to increase refugee admissions to the U.S. Negotiations continue between Chicago public schools and the teachers union over conditions for reopening. Many teachers want reopening delayed until after they're vaccinated for COVID-19. The union says they'll strike if the district locks teachers out of email and learning platforms. A new documentary series premiering tonight revisits a ploy to market an outrageous car back in the 1970s.
The Dale was a three-wheeler that landed on the automobile market at the height of the 1970s oil crisis with a reported 70 miles per gallon fuel efficiency. Too good to be true. That's what a new HBO 4-part docuseries titled The Lady and the Dale examines.
Henry Ford said, you catch things on the rising tide, you're doomed to success.
The Dale was from the brain of the media-savvy Elizabeth Carmichael, but nothing was as it appeared.
As any good criminal, she was thinking several moves ahead.
Carmichael grabbed wide recognition, not just for her pioneering vehicle, but because she was also trans. The series premieres at 9 Eastern. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
An 8-year-old bear at the Detroit Zoo is a proud mama bear. The zoo announcing Suka the polar bear gave birth to twin cubs. One of the cubs is being raised by humans because of early health issues. Zoo officials say the rare separation of sibling cubs will allow researchers to study the outcomes of cubs raised by humans versus being raised by their mothers. I'm Steve Rappaport, and this is Fox News.
I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm.
The nation's quadriplegics immobilized on Washington in support of stem cell research, and a Penn State t-shirt is awkwardly looked away from. And now for the weekly feature your fragile, susceptible mind already has your lips salivating for. This is The Onion Week in Review. Sources reported today that 10-year-old Brandon Thomas, who is currently homesick at his friend Kevin's sleepover, needs to just tough it the fuck out.
I don't feel like playing Xbox right now.
The pathetic little bitch who claims he just doesn't feel like eating any birthday cake or joining in any activities with his friends, frankly needs to grow a pair because his parents only live 10 minutes away, for Christ's sake. Here's what the whiny pansy had to say for himself.
I wasn't crying. It's just allergies. I want to go home.
What a f***ing wuss. In other news, a voicemail from mom is deleted 3 words in, and a man with nice eyes is blown. All right, now off with you. I can't have you seeing me like this. For more, visit theonion.com/newsbeat.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Hour number 3 of Free Talk Live, the Sunday night edition, is underway. Our telephone number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass,
Peakless Mountaineer,
and Melanie.
And we were talking about this article from Evie. It was actually written by a psychiatrist who says that people are suffering, Americans specifically, are suffering from mass delusional psychosis because of the overreach and COVID-19. That is the government's overreach, the government's reaction, the government lockdowns, the mask mandates, the curfews, all of the elements of what I refer to as martial law, except for the tanks in the streets and soldiers at every corner. Outside of that, I mean, if you consider how militarized the police are, it might as well be martial law. I can't see any real difference between this and martial law.
It's a good question.
At least in some places.
Where does that line get crossed exactly?
Let's go to your calls and thoughts. We've got Robert calling from Michigan. Robert, you are on Free Talk Live.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Indeed. What's on your mind?
Listen every Sunday night when I'm working, and I got to tell you, you guys are always entertaining and full of a lot of information.
Well, thanks.
And I love all the subjects you talk about. It's very eclectic, and I appreciate that.
What's on your mind tonight?
I consider myself to be kind of an information junkie. Not necessarily smarter than anyone, but I'm always looking at information and facts and trivia, and I'm kind of pretty good at retaining that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And you're talking about this COVID situation, and it's one of my favorite subjects. I'm one of the few people that regularly doesn't wear a mask if I don't have to.
Nice.
I have a kid, so I kind of do that to be a good example for him. But otherwise, I know COVID is real, but I think it's way overblown. And I think if the government really cared about our health and about our safety, they wouldn't just tell us to wear masks. I think there was so much misinformation early on. Now it's all disinformation.
Yep.
But I think that the wearing the mask thing is absolutely a joke. They should be touting everyone wearing an N95 or better rather than just a mask, and to make sure they wear it properly. And they don't do that because, like you guys said earlier, it's about compliance. It's about obedience.
So how is
and I got COVID myself, and it was nothing more than a bad cold. I've had way worse in the past.
So, Robert, let me ask you a question. How is wearing the mask around your kid a good example for your kid?
Well, I'm more of a rebel probably than I should be, so I don't want to have him be taking that as an example to misbehave in other areas. He kind of knows what I feel about wearing the mask.
Well, I think it's
and I just want to make sure that he doesn't take that and say, well, if Dad doesn't have to wear a mask, I don't have to wear a mask. And, if Dad wants to be independent, then I can do what I want in other areas. So it's a little bit of a balance with regard to him.
I mean, rebelling against insanity is good.
Yeah, I don't understand how any of that is bad. I mean, you are rebelling. You have obviously you have an opinion that differs from, well, say, the mass amount of people that are in the world. But, teaching that to your son isn't necessarily a bad thing. Don't accept what everybody tells you to just because they tell you to. Do your own research, do your own, feel it out, figure it out for yourself. That's what is important, I think, to teach your kid.
And we are teaching them that. I mean, for example, I'm not exactly a global warming advocate, and he knows that as well. And there are a few other things that are out there that the sheeple of this world go along with that he knows that I believe is misinformation, or it's information, or there are things that are out there that are basically just used to control us in one way or another. So, but at 9 years old, they're a little more impressionable as far as taking it a step or two too far.
Well,
He's pretty precocious, and you got to be careful with that just a little bit.
Would you consider possibly, sitting him down and explaining what you're about to do, and then going out unmasked with him somewhere in public?
And I have done that, but at the same time, I don't want to necessarily cause any problems because, again, I'm a little bit more independent, and I get a little bit defensive, shall we say, when it comes to
being confronted with
arguing my
authority.
position, and I don't want that to be something where he sees that I'm being confrontational, and that's acceptable either, because I don't take any crap from anybody.
I see. I suspect
I don't want him to be I don't want him to be quite as bad as I am.
Well, I mean, how is he going to take not wearing a mask too far?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How is your son going to take not wearing a mask too far? Is he going to have two faces? I mean...
Well, for example, they have to wear it at school. And he does go to school. In our school district, they do attend class. So if he were to rebel as a 9-year-old in that environment, he would have repercussions. And that would fall on us to deal with, and that's not a battle that I'm willing to fight.
Well, I have to ask, for someone who is willing to think for himself, why are you putting your child in public school?
Because we can't afford a Christian school, sadly. And we watch what he's being taught, and we're careful about that. And when we do see that he's being taught some things that we don't believe is right or is the truth. For example, global warming. I believe that global warming or climate change is real, but I don't believe that it's man-made. So in those kind of instances, he does know how we think. And I'm not trying to brainwash him either. I mean, he's got to be independent on his own as well.
I mean, I don't know that a private school would be much better on anything like that. They're still going to teach the Christian private schools are still going to teach the mainstream views on, pretty much everything.
The best option, honestly, is probably homeschooling, which has doubled recently.
You can pick schools that he's in on a private level or on a Christian school level that, while are not perfect, I know that. They're certainly better than the public schools. And he's not in a bad one for public schools. There are way worse ones out there as well, too.
So
but,
does your
when you go to school like that, you can't fight all the battles.
So does your household need a dual income to get by?
No.
Well, why aren't you homeschooling him?
Because I'm not qualified for it. I did try to do that when this whole thing hit in the spring of last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's got some ADD issues, ADHD issues, and he's also got some other things going on.
Well, so, I mean,
and
you're not
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not qualified to homeschool.
But you're not qualified.
It was a disaster.
Compared to what? Like, you're not qualified compared to. I mean, do you think that the public school is doing a better job than you? Because that would be astoundingly scary. Like, I don't think that's actually the case.
That's been disproven repeatedly that these so-called educational professionals end up with much, much worse results than people who aren't trained to do it but homeschool their kid anyway.
If you want to send me your city, I will hook you up with local resources wherever you are that will walk you through that.
I would appreciate that if you have some information.
Yeah, so
I know that when I tried to homeschool him for the few months that he had when everybody was out of school, it was, I wouldn't say an unmitigated disaster.
You're trying to do the remote learning, because those are two different things.
Say that again?
Homeschool or remote learning, because those are two different things. Can we hold him over?
Yeah, can you hold on, Robert? We're going to bring you back after this.
Sure.
Okay, stand by. We'll bring you back. 603-283-6160. If you'd like to join the conversation, we'll hear more from Robert in Michigan and his adventures in homeschooling coming up.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Look, I'm sorry, but you're in for a world of pain if you use Koinomi. The reason is their wallet doesn't support payments. The solution is simple. Let them hear your voice. Message Koinomi on Twitter, it takes 5 seconds, and tell them AnyPay sent you, because they're on the fence right now, and your voice will prove that people care about using Bitcoin for payments. Go tweet at Koinomi now. Or even better, leave a review in the App Store. They really pay attention there. Thanks.
What if the United States and the Soviet Union had fought on land, sea, air, and the astral plane, struggled for dominion across parallel dimensions or on the surface of the moon? What wonders would have been unveiled? What terrors would have haunted mankind from those dark and dismal dimensions? Come closer, peer through a glass darkly, and discover the horrifying alternative visions of World War III from some of today's greatest minds in science fiction, fantasy, and horror. Weird World War III. Available now from Bain Books at bainbooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Want to accept Bitcoin at your online store? There's a good chance you already have what you need: a WordPress using WooCommerce and a Bitcoin address. Now all you need to start taking Bitcoin payments on your website is the AnyPay app on your Android or iPhone. Just paste your Bitcoin address into AnyPay, then connect it to your website with our one-click plugin for WordPress. Now your website takes Bitcoin, start to finish, in 15 minutes or less with no complicated steps. Download AnyPay from the App Store today.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Yes, it's Free Talk Live. You're in the right spot. Our telephone number, it is 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. If you'd like to join the conversation. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Bigless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
And we have been talking to Robert in Michigan about the delusions that people have because of an article that we were talking about from EV Magazine regarding the COVID-19. And Robert has, said that he attempted to either homeschool or remote learn with his child. And so we want to get some clarification from him. Robert, you're back on the air. Can you hear us?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, great. Melanie, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess I first would want to clarify, what were you trying to homeschool or were you trying to do remote learning? Because some people have been conflating those.
Well, they shut the schools down in early spring of last year because of COVID. Right. And they weren't as prepared for that as they should have been, which I understand, because nobody was prepared for it back then. And so they gave us some curriculum to teach the students at home, and it didn't involve any remote learning at that time.
Okay, yeah, so and that's not homeschooling. I'm not qualified for it. I'm not prepared for it. I don't have the mentality for it. Well, and right. I don't think I would be a good teacher to my son in that regard overall. But you're basing this on a couple of months of unplanned, chaotic curriculum that you were given by a public school that you kind of chaotically inserted into your life, and your son knew that this was going to end. That's kind of hitting every worst scenario all at once.
You might indeed have some trouble following their curriculum, which their curriculum is not designed to educate free-thinking individuals. That's not what it's there for. So yeah, I mean, the fact that you haven't been trained to follow their curriculum is going to make it difficult to follow their curriculum. That doesn't mean that you can't actually teach them useful things. That doesn't mean that you can't actually educate them and help to bring out their natural curiosity.
But there are groups, and homeschooling is legal in Michigan because you don't have to do much. I just looked it up.
Right.
There are groups that will support homeschooling families and homeschooling parents, not remote learning. Really, because that's not what they're for. They've been around for years and years, and some people have already raised their kids and they're grown and their kids are now doing this. There is people you could go to for support. Some people write their entire own curriculum. Some people there's Christian curriculums you can buy, and then some people will just use that. Some people will use that and then tweak it to what they want or what is appropriate for their kid, where their kid's at.
And the curriculum that you were handed, the little piece of here's what you're supposed to do. I mean, number one, that was not designed for you to do. Like, number two, you said yourself, they weren't prepared for this. Like, they didn't have the resources to say, okay, here's what you need to do. They kind of slapdashed it together. So, I mean, it's no wonder you're having trouble following, A, something that wasn't designed to actually help them, and B, something that wasn't done well.
And if your kid knows, okay, we're going to be homeschooling now, I'm going to get a group of homeschoolers that, we go to their events, I'm going to have friends there, he's going to do a lot better with that because he's a person, then, okay, well, now you're going to be isolated at home and here's some books. Like, those are two really different things.
And I agree with that. And that's the other aspect that is missing from the homeschooling equation. I mean, we stay on top of what he's being taught and what he's learning and that kind of thing in the curriculum that they're teaching. But he's proved to do much better in a social environment regarding schooling. He did terrible by himself.
No, but he did terrible in a chaotic, unplanned environment. But even if that's the case, they have homeschooling co-ops that you can use. My email on the show is melanie@freetalklive.com. I'm also on Facebook, Melanie Neighbors. There's a U, extra U, the OURS. I actually know your city, but I don't know if that was supposed to be public. I will email you co-ops and homeschooling groups there are people who are veterans at this, and they will, because I'm not in Michigan, so I can't tell you how to work through the system.
And that's a big misconception. People think that they have to do all of this on their own. They think that they can't have their kids socialized because they're homeschooling them. And while that might have been challenges in the past, that's increasingly just not the way it goes.
Yeah, and particularly where you're at in Michigan.
Yeah, right. And there's some Christian curriculums I can send you. I'll look up what groups are actually homeschool groups as opposed to private schools or remote learning support groups, and I will send you those. And I know a bunch of people here who do this. I'm going to do it when my kids are old enough, and I was homeschooled, so feel free to ask me whatever. Your city, the city that you gave when you called in, is that your real city? I don't have to say what it is.
I mean, it's not my exact city, but it's close enough.
Okay, well then,
obviously I got to stay a little bit on the discreet side here.
Sure.
But
yeah.
You've given your email address, and I will contact that at some point this week, and we can connect that way if you're okay with that.
Okay, yeah. So then that's what city I'll look in, and then email me.
Yeah, and for both you and any listeners out there who are concerned with this topic, I mean, very recently we have had the number of homeschoolers double. So while there already was a certain amount of support network to help each other out with this and to make sure that they get the social interaction that they need, it is twice as much as it has been before. I mean, this isn't something you need to do on your own.
If there are resources that would help me regarding his ADD or ADHD, that's another little twist to this, and I want to make sure that if we do pursue this in the near future, that's handled properly as well. He does need a little tutoring on a couple of subjects because he's a little bit behind due to circumstances beyond everybody's control.
Well, and one thing that I can tell you is that it's going to be a lot harder to do the traditional sort of Prussian industrial style of schooling if they have ADD because they're not naturally inclined to sit still and be quiet.
Yeah, and I know that New Hampshire has resources for that, but that doesn't really, I can't speak to Michigan, but I haven't looked into it. I'm sure that there are people in Michigan who have dealt with that.
Yeah, you're not the only parent on planet Earth that, has a son with those types of needs, much less one that, is considering possibly the homeschool advantage. So,
Wait. I'm not the only one? What?
That's right. Did you have any other thoughts tonight, Robert?
Guys.
All right, have a good night. Thanks for the call.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, good luck, Robert. And, for the rest of our listeners out there, too, you should consider this. If you have children, get your children, in my opinion, the F out of government schools.
Yeah, the last poll I saw said that 10% of people are now doing homeschooling.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
10% of people are doing
I'm sure
homeschooling.
That's inflated, though, because some people are saying they're homeschooling right now who are not.
Well, okay.
Be that as it may, it's still twice as many as were before, and that's a lot of people that can help you out with this difficult task.
I'll take the net gain.
Right.
603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live is on the way.
Moose is the German Shepherd, now 11, and he's been an amazing dog. Moose is so active and so alert and hasn't had any kind of health problems at all. He has a beautiful coat, and at 11, he'll still run and chase the ball. He has been on Dynavite since he's a puppy.
Dynavite for life.
Because if they're getting all their vitamins, micronutrients, microbials from the beginning, then you're not going to run into the problems associated with the grass, pollen, dust, dirt, fleas, ticks, you name it, and the itching and shedding down the road.
DINOVITE.com. We tell anybody that has a dog, if there was something that you could do right from the beginning so that you don't have expensive veterinary bills, why would you not do it? Get the Dynavite.
You won't believe how happy your dog will be.
I get my Dynavite from DINOVITE.com.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
Welcome back to Free Talk Live, the live call-in radio talk program where you can take control of the airwaves and talk about anything you'd like to discuss. Our telephone number is 603-283-6160. And in the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Bigless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
And you can join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for Forkfest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Forkfest happens the week after Porcupine Freedom Festival, and Forkfest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. You just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can relax and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded people, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for Forkfest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with fellow Forkfesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the Forkfest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. So mark your calendar for June 28th through July 4th, 2021, and we'll see you at forkfest.party. Let's just go ahead with your calls and your thoughts. We've got David in New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, so this is your second night back on the air in the Albuquerque metro area, which Albuquerque itself is 560,000 people, and the metro area is just short of 1 million.
Okay.
And this is a Sunday night, so you're heard in the central Albuquerque area, and you're heard in northern New Mexico. So that's about 1 million to 1.25 million people that, if they wanted to, could hear you on broadcast radio. Without having to go to the internet, they could hear you over the air.
Good evening, Albuquerque.
Yeah. And on Saturdays, you get another 250,000 because the southern station, KINN, is on the air. And let's see, we're in the United States, we're a government of the people, by the people, for the people, right?
So they tell us.
Yeah, so that's us right now. So I'm going to open a session of government right now, and we're now officially in session, a government session here of the people, by the people, for the people. And first of all, I would like anybody in New Mexico to use this government forum to call in tonight or other nights and express your concerns about the professional government, the ones that are getting paid here in New Mexico or elsewhere, and especially if you have complaints about corruption. I'd like to hear that. And until we hear from you, let me drop one more little tidbit about what I know about New Mexico corruption and concerns otherwise. And that is, so I just defeated Raul Torres and his wife Nasha Torres, who are both $100,000 plus salaried state employees, county employees, judicial district employees. I guess however that works with the DA. Raul is the district attorney in Bernalillo County, and he tried to put me in prison for a total of like 3 years with 4 different charges for calling his wife's university. Nasha Torres is his wife, and at the University of New Mexico, she's the dean of students there, which means that, like Raul, the DA is the chief disciplinarian for the county of the second judicial district in Bernalillo County. His wife, Nasha Torres, is the chief disciplinarian for the entire University of New Mexico. And there's kind of a conflict of interest there. That's one concern. Because and actually, as proof of that, they had to transfer there was a basketball player that was charged with some stuff, and they had to transfer that out of Raul's jurisdiction to another jurisdiction in New Mexico because of that very complaint that I just voiced.
Oh, no.
And so that should be addressed. But and there's a million things that could be addressed, but to narrow it down, so that's one thing. Let me give you a second one. I just defeated Raul Torres. He was trying to put me in prison for 3 years for insisting that I had a right to call in to his wife's radio station. Once again, his wife is Nasha Torres, and her radio station is KUNM, the University of New Mexico radio station, entirely funded with taxpayer dollars, just like her salary and the salary of her husband. And they told me not to call their station anymore because they didn't like to hear me. Nobody likes to hear it, but they didn't want to hear me anymore, and they claimed that they didn't have to hear it. And I said that, hey, you're entirely owned and paid for by taxpayers, so I got the same rights as everybody else under the 14th Amendment and other law. And they called their private police force, University of New Mexico Police Force, and had me charged with 4 different charges, and I ended up getting thrown in jail for 3 days.
Wow, they have a
And they've been
university
fighting
police
this
force?
for 5 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pardon?
Yeah, when did you win this? I realize it's recent, but like, has it been days, weeks?
It's been days, weeks, and months. I won the first of the 4 months ago, and then I won the most recent of the 4 a couple weeks ago.
That's the one I was thinking
now
of.
they have no more. That was the end of them. And here's the, in addition to the concerns that I just presented, here's the one I wanted to focus on tonight, and that is that. So the prosecutor filed their nolle prosecution. You know, their null prosecution. They're not going to pursue the charges. But when they, when that happens, people generally, defendants like myself, generally go, oh, well, good, it's over. But as Melanie may already figure where I'm going with this, when they dismiss it, and I asked this in court of Assistant DA Tyler Tominski, in the presence of Judge Victor Valdez, and it's on the court record. I asked him, Assistant DA Tominski, are you when you file this motion to dismiss, is this a dismissal with or without prejudice? And nobody knows what that means, and I always get it confused. Melanie knows what it means, but in a nutshell, what it means is, can you refile the charge if you decide tomorrow you wake up, you didn't get any from your wife the night before, and you wake up and you're all pissed off, and you decide I'm gonna take it out on David Olson. I'm gonna refile those charges that I dismissed yesterday.
Right.
And that's the case. They can
so
actually
you can
refile
do that
these
if it is with prejudice. Is that right? You can
Melanie answer the question.
No.
If it's without prejudice,
Yeah.
you can bring it back up?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so they dismissed it without prejudice, which means that they can bring it back up again. So my question, one, to Raul Torres and everybody else is, you know what, if you dismiss something, why don't you dismiss it with prejudice? Why are you holding that last little bit of control until the time clock runs out, which it does in another couple weeks or month or two or whatever it does? Why do you do that? Why don't you dismiss it so that it's a done deal, rather than that you have the option to refile it? That's rather abusive, Raul Torres and Nasha Torres, isn't it?
Well, it sounds like the whole thing that you've been through has been rather abusive. I realize that you're a frequent caller to Free Talk Live, and we have fun with you. I would hope that another radio station would have just as much fun with you as we do here on Free Talk Live. And we thank you for the call tonight, David. He's been in an interesting battle, that's for sure. Would you care to clarify the non-prejudice versus prejudice?
So if you're dismissing with prejudice or without prejudice the complaint, or it's usually whatever they call it in that jurisdiction.
Yeah. Is there like an expiration date that he alluded to? Like if
there's a statute of limitations on whatever the crime is.
Okay, and so that applies to the dismissal.
Well, it applies to, they can't prosecute you whenever it was alleged to be committed. So if it's a week away from being 2 years and the statute of limitations is 2 years, it doesn't matter how many times they've filed it and then dismissed it before. Once that 2 years is up, as long as the trial hasn't started, you're done.
Okay. Thank you. Continuing on, let's go to Lee calling from Planet Earth. Lee, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hello, everybody. Hey, listen, I wanted to speak to the people that are struggling or thinking about homeschooling. And it's...
hey, Lee, I apologize. Can you hold on? Can you stay with us?
Yes.
All right, thanks. I just hear the music coming on, and so we'll bring you back shortly. Just stand by, because I want to talk to this human being or potential alien who's calling from planet Earth.
We think.
Well, we'll find out more about where this Earthling is calling from. 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live on the way.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for ForkFest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can relax and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded people, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with fellow ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Mark your calendar for June 28th through July 4th, 2021. We'll see you at forkfest.party. Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. local.bitcoin.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Tensions in Washington, D.C. reached a new high yesterday as several dozen members of Congress took a class of visiting school children hostage, barricaded themselves inside the Capitol Rotunda, and demanded $12 trillion in cash. The children were rounded up at gunpoint, whereupon the House Speaker informed negotiators that one child would die every hour unless their demands were met. Here now, a brief video one of the students was able to send out from inside the Capitol.
Nobody move, you're all gonna die! This kid's got a phone.
Historians across the country politely reminded Americans this week to quickly check and see what has happened in the past before making any big decisions.
Just take any book with history in it and then quickly skim through it to see what decisions in the past turned out to be bad. And then once you've pinpointed them, simply don't make those same decisions again. Because if a bad thing happened again, you see, that would be very bad indeed, wouldn't it?
This is the Onion News Network.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Welcome back to Free Talk Live, the final segment on our Sunday night edition. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass,
Peakless Mountaineer,
and Melanie.
And I need to take just a second and say thank you to Vencam. Vencam is a platinum-level amplifier. What does that mean, you might ask? Well, you can go over to amp.freetalklive.com and find out all about our amplifier program. Basically, we ask for you to contribute $5 a month. You can contribute more. Vencam contributes, I don't remember what the platinum level is, but it's pretty high. So he's a platinum level contributor to the program. And what this money goes to is to help us get on more radio stations exclusively. We're on something like 190 radio stations, maybe a little more than that by now, but we could be on 200. We could be on 250 radio stations. It's all up to you. If you like our programming, you like the content that we bring, you like the personalities that we have, please consider becoming an amplifier and helping us get on more radio stations over at amp.freetalklive.com. There are some perks if you do become an amplifier. You get some special benefits and that kind of a thing. And Vencam, thank you for being a platinum level.
Which is at least $25 a month.
$25. Thank you, Vencam. So let's go back to, I presume you are a human being, Lee, calling from planet Earth somewhere, but I didn't actually ask you that when I screened your call. So, Lee, you are on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
I am on planet Earth. I'm underneath the Milky Way, just south of the Big Dipper compared to the Milky Way. I'm just a little bit south of the Big Dipper.
Okay.
It is the subdivision they call planet Earth.
What's on your
I
mind?
wanted to speak into the homeschool.
Okay.
And anybody that's struggling or thinking about homeschooling, like Robert, thinking he's not qualified, let me tell you me. And, back in the 90s, I couldn't read, write, spell. Just couldn't do it, and somewhere in the 90s I started reading the Bible, and once I got the scriptures in, I started reading. Now I can read. My spelling's horrible, but before that, I had my daughter. I ended up homeschooling her until she was 9 years old, and it was simply through, I guess it was a Becca, but it was simply through, just going through a book, open it up, help her work through the reading process, and by the time she was 9 years old, she was past me with reading, writing, and spelling.
Wow.
So, if anybody else, and I'm telling you, I'm qualified to be a ditch digger. I don't mean with a backhoe, I mean a shovel. Every once in a while, they might let me use a pick. But, anybody could do it. And, there's nobody on this planet that loves that child more than the parent. So, if
That's
you
right.
think that, they're struggling with ADHD, any label you want to put on it, you just got to, expect them to have struggles with it and just love them through it, walk them through it, and be patient and diligent. I mean, Melissa's her name, but, she can speak into it more than anybody because she's been through it. But when my daughter finally, when she was 10 years old, she wanted to go to public school. That was the stupidest thing I did, but I let her go. Well, that next year and the year after that, she was already past that with her homeschooling. She already knew everything that the kids were learning at that. So it was like she was doing nothing for the next 2 years because what they were going through, she had already been through it.
That frequently happens with the homeschoolers, Lee. That, like, I hear it all the time about how they are academically, in front of, ahead of the game compared to their public school counterparts.
Yeah, and she's got her own horse thing going on where she's a equestrian rider and teaching other people how to ride. So she didn't lack in any type of social skills. And I'd take her to work with me, and she'd hang out, and meet people that I was with. So she was she was with me just forever. Anyhow. Don't be bashful. Don't think that anybody else could do a better job than you just because they got a degree. You love that kid more than anybody on this planet. For everybody who's listening,
the public school are really, and private schools too, are kind of necessarily more behind because you have 20 to 30 different kids in the same classroom, and they don't really split you up for subjects until high school, I think. One person might be really good at math and a little behind in English, and one person might be really good at English and a little behind in science. So they have to teach to the person who's the most behind in every subject. Whereas if it's just your kid, and you can have more than one kid and teach them separately because you don't have 20 kids. If your kid's a little bit behind in English, well, maybe you do some more remedial stuff in that, but then they can still progress in everything else. Whereas if they were in a public school or a private school, they would be held back in everything until everybody catches up. So that's kind of necessarily the case in a group setting like that.
And doubly true now that there's the No Child Left Behind thing. And
that didn't work for me.
Yeah, and as far as the outcomes on this, I mean, the information is just crystal clear. Homeschoolers average out at like 80% higher test scores.
It's true.
So, I mean, that is what an unprofessional doing this gets you.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, Lee?
Yeah, but thank you for your time, guys.
Thanks for listening. We appreciate the call.
Thank you.
The science is settled. Homeschooling rules. I mean, I am being funny, but there is a whole boatload of data that suggests that homeschooling is a far more effective method for children to learn.
And this kind of ties back into our earlier talk about mass delusions.
Yes.
Because if it bothers you that you might, not be doing the best thing for your child by sending them to a public school, you might really want to look into that idea. Why does it bother you?
Yeah.
Why does it cause you anxiety to think that, okay, well, maybe you're not? Because a lot of the parents, once they actually take a look, when they're allowed to do so, because plenty of schools don't allow this when they're doing this remote learning stuff, when they actually take a look and they're like, wait, that's it? That's all you're learning?
Yeah. You had alluded to the Prussian school system earlier in our conversation tonight, and I just want to reiterate that to our listeners who may not have heard that. The Prussian school system was developed to create obedient factory workers.
And soldiers.
This is where the rows of desks come from. What they wanted to do was be able to train these people to, pull the levers, hit the switches, that kind of a thing. It was never designed to be a daycare, if you will, where it was responsible for teaching children how to grow up and be a part of society. It was never designed for any of that. It was designed specifically to train people on menial tasks and to make them incredibly obedient. Now, if you look at the United States public school system, you will realize that that is the outcome that you're getting. You are getting, again, to your point, Melanie, people having been taught to the room's lowest learner, right? But then also a high level of obedience specifically to the state. And so they are very successful at those two things. What they're not successful at is the delusion that everybody else believes they're getting, that their kids are getting when they send them to public school.
Yeah, if you want your children to be obedient, gullible, naive, then send them to school. If you want them to be capable, then raise them yourself. I mean, if you're going to put so much resources into these human beings, why on earth would you not want to, give them the benefit of your learned experience?
Yeah, and if you are a person who values freedom, what can be more freeing than showing your children that it can be done by leading by example for them yourself and helping to bring about some change by doing a more free version of education that statistically shows is a better form of education. I can't think of a better way.
And I mean, part of the reason that you end up having to go to trade schools and so on and so forth is that they spent over a decade filling your head with statist propaganda and not bothering to make you capable of doing anything at all. I mean, can you balance a checkbook? Do you have a trade, a skill after they've spent how many hours of every single weekday for over a decade supposedly educating you? No, you're good for approximately nothing, because it is, and it's a dark secret, it is daycare. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's modeled in the same way that prisons are modeled.
Yeah.
Right. The bells that you learn in school, that's all Pavlovian response stuff. When you hear the bell, time to stop this subject, when that's not how learning occurs. Learning doesn't occur for 45 minutes and then a bell.
And increasingly, even the architecture of public schools is designed by the people that design prisons.
We are out of time. Thanks, everybody, for listening. If you missed any part of the show, go to freetalklive.com and find our archives. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks. Peace.
Divvy's been a pretty good investment for Free Talk Live. Their